Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of YOML. I'm still on vacation, but here I am with Chris. We go on for another episode 111. Today we want to see what history can teach us. So take it away, Chris.
Yeah, this is a fun book actually. Do you know who Will Durant is by any chance?
I heard of him, but I don't know too much about him.
I really didn't know much about him at all either until like this whole journey. But I think this guy's like a really famous philosopher. So he wrote like this 12 part like history of the world or something like that. Um, uh, uh, like almost encyclopedia
Hmm.
with his wife Ariel,
Right.
and it was kind of like their life's work, and it was all about like culture and civilization, mankind and philosophy, and just commonality themes of humanity, and looking at it from all different kinds of perspectives, and kind of you know not necessarily weaving a common thread through it, but just kind of examining humanity and why we do what we do, and
Hmm.
throughout history, basically, is what their work was. This book, it's called that we're going to be talking about today, is called The Lessons of History, which is like a summary, condensed version of that larger work
Right.
that they did. It was pretty interesting. It was kind of a condensing of their life's work into like a digestible, quick, easy format. I did this one as an audiobook, and it was a unique audiobook because in between the book they did like interviews with Will and Ariel Durant, talking about some of the chapters and thoughts, and they went a little bit deeper on the thoughts and some thought provoking questions. It was like when they were really later on in their life. You could just kind of tell from the audio of it was like they were really old voices,
Hmm.
and they were on their kind of last legs, I think, on the journey. So it was an interesting perspective to kind of hear them reflecting back on all their work that they had done, as well as not just the actual book, but the questions in between it, and kind of going a little deeper on certain topics and things like that. So it was a pretty interesting read. I would encourage you to, anybody to check this one out. I think it didn't really have like it wasn't like philosophical in terms of like there was some theme or some point they were trying to get across. It was pretty agnostic, and it was pretty taking a broad view of humanity and kind of themes of humanity, and that's been seen throughout time. It was pretty cool. So
Hmm.
anyway, so the reflection for the day is um, uh, a quote from the book, actually. He said, I was from Will Durant. He said, I was so much smarter when I was younger. So as I mentioned, I was doing this one as an audiobook, and they were doing these interviews in between like chapters, and the narrator was asking some questions of Will and Ariel Durant, and in the book, or in the interviews, I remember the author asking Will Durant something, and like I'll never forget this. Like it's just something like it's just burned into my brain at this point in time. He asked the interviewer, like, "Hey, Will, so some of the comments from your past philosophies and commentary when you were younger, where you had said this, but now you're kind of, the answer you just gave me was kind of a contradiction to what you said when you were younger." And Will Durant started kind of joking and laughing, and he was like, "Yeah, I that's funny because I was so much smarter when I was younger." And he's like, "That's the funny thing about old age. It's like the older I get, the less and less I know." It's one of those things when you're like really really young, right? You think like you just know everything, and it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. This whole journey is been about, you and I talk about this all the time, right?
Yes.
If you could go back in time and ask your 20-year-old and tell your 20-year-old self like one thing, like what would it be? And I mean, the truth is it's probably nothing, because they don't listen.
Yep.
You probably didn't listen well back then. And you got to understand this stuff for yourself. And you think you know everything. Sometimes it's fun to be when you're young and just have that like one track mindset of like, I'm right. I got a pretty good feel on what this world's all about. And then I'm gonna go. I know what my goals are. I'm gonna go run headstrong at this stuff. And you look back on some of the shit that you said when you were younger, and you're like, man, I didn't know anything. And now, and as Will Durant was toward the latter half of his life, and he's like looking back on his own life, and he's laughing, saying like, I didn't. Well, I didn't know anything, and I know less than I did when I was 25 years old when I wrote that originally, or something along those lines. Because it's true. Like I feel like the older that you get, the dumber you get, in a good way, you know. And you and I talk about this all the time of like, you know, we don't know anything. Like, and that's kind of one of my personal core values that we wrote into my own core values. And I know this is an important core value for Clubany, and we talk about it all the time, of keeping that beginner's mind, and to remember to humble yourself, to say like, you don't know anything. You maybe know 0.0001% of all the knowledge out there. And even that knowledge is, who even knows if that's right or not at this point in time, you know. Like, the universe, like, is so complex, infinitely complex, and so many moving parts, and all this other stuff. Like, you'll never understand it. Well, nobody will ever understand it. I don't care if you read every book in this world. I don't care if you use every supercomputer that's all being, you know, it does not change anything that we really just don't know anything. But to be fair, that does not mean that, you know, that's to me personally, that's what makes life fun. Like, you know, it's, if I knew everything, then what the hell would be the point of life? You know, it's you know, when you're younger, like, you feel like you know everything, and life kind of sucks, and then you end up hitting this wall where you're like, you know, you're like, well, shit, I didn't know everything, you know. And you start to have your world rocked, and you're like, you know, that's when I don't know, that's when the fun, I think, kind of begins, you know. I guess, yeah, this book, in a weird, ironic sort of fashion for me, like, because it wasn't even really a reflection about the book, it was about the audio commentary of Will Durant. But yeah, you know, it's just, you know, it's just funny. Like, the older that you get, the dumber you get, you know, and that's a good thing. Like, it should happen. Like, you know, I knew so much more when I was younger, you know, and I think that's true. So anyway, I'd love to pause there, you know, get your thoughts, and you know, hear your take on this one.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I agree. You know, we like, one of our core values is learning, right? And the reason why we learn is because we don't know anything. And you know, one of the I guess the saying we say to each other is, you know, I don't know shit, you don't know shit, we don't know shit, right?
Right.
And essentially that's the kind of like vernacular that we use. But you know, that's, to me, it reminds me of like you know, when I was young, I know everything in my house, but I don't know anything beyond my house, because
Right.
I just don't know the boundary of the knowledge of possibility that's out
Right.
there. And then when I get older, I say, well, there's other people's house, and there's neighbors' house, and there's the communities, and there's the, you know, talking about the city, and then the state, and then the nations, and then the world, and then the, you know, the galaxy, not even a galaxy, but you know, your own personal like groups of planets you're in, and then there's the galaxy, and you know, much bigger than that. So
Right.
the more that you learn, the more you know there's more boundary. Just like you looking at when we were young, we only see a puddle, right? And we see
Right.
everything that is in the puddle. So, well, yeah, in the puddle, I see all there is to see. And then suddenly we know, hey, there's a bigger puddle out there. And then after a while, you see, well, there's rivers, and there's lakes, and now there's ocean. And you look at it and say, dang, it's so vast that I can't even see. So what I knew compared to the amount of information is out there, the percentage of what you think you knew, it gets smaller and smaller. So that
Yeah.
0.001%, they keep adding the zero to in front, like the
Right.
0.000, you keep adding the zero to that 0.001%. It keep growing and growing and growing. It's just
Right.
because, you know, your boundary keep expanding, but the amount of knowledge of information you gather is that can keep up with the boundaries of the thing that you see from beyond the horizon. I mean, to the point where we can't even see beyond the horizon, right?
Right.
You look at the horizon and say, where does it end? Where does it stop? We
It
can't even
doesn't.
see. We can't even see where it stops. And so
the,
you think
the
about
universe is always expanding, right? You know, I mean, or
exactly.
at least until it starts to contract. Yeah. But who
So
knows
like
when the hell that'll be? And who even knows if
exactly.
that's even true? Yeah.
So the thing is, you know, that's the key to like um knowing, right? Then when you know more, the more you also know the boundaries.
Right.
And the when the boundary become boundless, this is when the 0.001% is say, well, that's not even correct. You have to say,
Right.
well, could it be even like more zeros? How many more zero? Well, I don't know. I
I'm,
don't even know that. I don't even
I,
know the boundary to that. So how would I know if I know, hey, I know 10%, I know 100%, or I know 90%? Like when we're younger, right? We
Right.
are only in our own space, and in our own
Well,
space, like there's like 10 different things, and we know like 6 or 7. And say, wow, I know everything, and so I'm still struggling to imagine myself having a time machine, going back and tell my 18-year-old self how to navigate my life and what I need to advice I can give to him that to kind of change
maybe,
my future life. I'm still
maybe the
struggling with
advice
it
is,
because
maybe the advice should be, you don't know anything. Just go through life saying,
but
as you were
that's the
just
thing
saying
is
that,
he doesn't he won't agree with me because he already know that he
that's
knows
true.
like 60-80% of all there is to know. It's like I know it, I know this. You guys can tell me whatever you say is a scam, whatever, blah blah. How can I tell somebody who won't listen?
What was that movie or show or book or something where they, oh, isn't it like the something about the galaxy, like, anyway, where they come back and they're like, the secret to all humanity is like 23 or something like that. Like what is that book? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like,
Well,
it's like a,
there's so many movies and books like that, so I don't remember which one
it,
exactly.
it doesn't matter. Anyway, my point is like, where they're it's this computation that comes back and it's like, the secret to happiness is, 23, and you're like, what the hell does that mean? Like, and
Yeah.
but what's funny is you said two interesting thoughts came to mind as you were talking there for a second. And the first one was, when we said like 0.0001% or whatever, we're the only ones that talk in numbers, to be fair. Like, I don't even know if these numbers even are real. You know what I mean? Like, we're
Yeah.
just like we're the only ones even know what 0.001%. I mean, if you went to a tree and you said, I only know 0.00001% of all the knowledge in the world, the tree would be like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Like,
Right, right.
I mean, what, like, who you talking to, bro? Like, I mean,
Uh,
like, I mean, this tree would be like, I think you're nuts, bro.
yes.
Number one. Number two, you also said something really interesting. What if I wonder if your level of happiness, this is just like a, a hypothetical or a hypothesis, but I wonder if your level of happiness correlates to, as that number gets bigger and bigger and bigger in life, if your happiness goes up and up and up, versus as that number shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, like where you get closer to, let's just say 1 or something like that, where you think you actually do know what's going on. I wonder if your happiness goes down and down and down. I wonder, I guess my point of what I'm getting at is, the further it gets, down the road of the unknowing path, I wonder if your happiness levels rise, because you're engaged, you're exploring, you're curious, you're doing what humans do, you question, versus the opposite end of the direction where you feel like you know more and more and more. I'd be really curious to see what there would be like a happiness corollary, to that spectrum, I guess, in general, because I have a weird feeling that the further you get, toward the Will Durant, where he's at the end of his life and he's looking back and he's like, well, I may have known a lot more then, but I was way less happy than I was, than I am now when I don't know shit. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to know that kind of evidence. But in I have a hypothesis though. I don't think it matters because it at the end of the day, I think going through all the events I went through, the only thing that makes because what I've seen is like I've seen people who are very knowledgeable, and the more they know, the more they learn, the more depressed they have become, the
Right.
more
Yeah,
sad they have
that's
become
what,
because they
that's what I mean.
understand.
Yeah.
They
The more
understand.
expert you get.
Yeah. The more expert you get, the more depressed you become
Right.
because you learn about the atrocities of human histories and the behaviors of some people. Just like when we talked about yesterday, the 48 laws by Robert Greene, right?
Right.
You feel icky because you kind of like going through from a like first eye perspective of how these courtesan are trying to beguile another people another person in court and trying to get power and all that. So the more you learn about the history or the more you learn about some concept that people use for the bad, you feel like it's a depressing world. It's a world that is not, I guess, rosy in your mind. So there are some people, the more knowledge they have, the more depressed they become. And
Yeah.
there's some people who have become happier because they attain more knowledge and they learn, whether that's, hey, I become better at, the 48 laws of power, and I become,
Right.
the top courtesan in court or whatever. And so to me, in the same situation, some people are happier and some people are sad. And on the other flip side, when people are uh if they have less knowledge, right? Sometimes they say ignorant is bliss because they don't know too much, so they don't really care, and they go life with, the kind of like, hey, whatever life's happen, I go with the flow. And so, and there are also people who are really get into a situation where they get taken advantage of just because they become a target of a scapegoat or whatever. Then,
Sure.
the misfortune befalls on them because they aren't able to discern the plot of some people who are evil, or maybe they just happen to be the right frame, the right look, the right situation for them to take the fall for somebody else. So it may be by random, but still it creates this misery. So for me, it's like there are pros and cons, and there are both sides in terms of having more knowledge and having less knowledge. What I think is, if you can attain the things that you need, the things that you need, meaning that the things that you're born that you don't have, or the born the thing, or the thing that you're born that you have, the kind of genetic makeup that you are born with. Going back to the same saying before, this is killing you, and I think I'm chopping this to death. But the beaver must dam, right? Because you're
Right.
born as a beaver. If you are a beaver because you're given that particular characteristics and personality, you are going to be happy if you get to dam. If you tell people, hey, you get to go and burrow in the snow, right? You can burrow in the snow all you want. He said, well, I'm not happy. I don't care if I can
Right.
burrow all the snow I want. I want to build a dam. I want to swim because my fur is made to swim, and I'm, whatever reason, I'm compelled to swim. So if I get to swim, I get to do the things that, whatever makes me that way, fulfills that particular need, you become happier.
That's a really, 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 really interesting point. It makes me think about, balance. Like, knowing your purpose, like you're talking about with the beaver, right? Like knowing that 100% and really believing in that matters. And we're saying you don't know anything. Well, if you're going to know something, know your purpose, know your values, know what's really important to you, so you can go do that stuff and have no ill thoughts, second thoughts about it. It's like this just aligns. This is right. This feels right. This know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Or no, you should know why you're doing what you're doing. If you have the why, the purpose, the mission, the values to support
And this is where the
something, then
happiness comes
then
in.
then yeah, then but it also is the balance of not knowing anything at the same time, right? So it's like this, it's balance, right? It's when if you're going to be 100% committed on something in one area of your life, everything else in your life then should be, I don't know anything, and I'm willing to explore to maybe add on to this thing that I think I know really well, like, or the one thing that I know 100%, like this is what I'm on earth to do, you know what I mean? Uh it's interesting. You make a really interesting point because it's, you know
It's just a fulfillment,
yeah.
right? You have to fulfill your calling. What I mean, quote unquote calling. Okay, I gotta quote things because I don't know if that even means much. Just
Right.
because, I mean, the word we use is maybe, mislabel or being too cliche. It's your calling, whatever it is that you are made, right?
Purpose.
Your it's
Meaning, purpose, whatever. Yeah.
right, meaning and purpose, and that's what I'm saying is going back to meaning. What is meaning and what is purpose? What is a what life purpose? Some people say no, no, nothing. Or some people say do this, or some people do that. To me, like for me to be happy is for me to say my body and my mind doesn't doesn't tug on me, doesn't make me think about this and worry about my mind and be at ease. So it's a freedom for my mind, freedom for my body. Meaning, what does that mean? Like, so let's imagine that I am a sick person, right? Why am I miserable? It's because my legs keep telling me it hurts, or
Right.
my face keeps telling me it's bloated, or it's inflamed, right? My body is tugging on me. It won't let me rest. My
Right.
mind, same thing, is when I'm stressed. Oh, I gotta make this deadline. I have to do this presentation. I have to do this. I have to agree with somebody that I don't agree with. That causes you that mind. Your mind is tugging at you. It's not letting you sleep. Not letting you have peace. So if your body say, okay, you are made this way, right? If you give your body what it wants, it's gonna let you be at peace, meaning that it's not going to tug on you. It's not going to make you worry. You don't run for train, and this is where you be at a happy state. And then the
Right.
thing is, you say, well, what if you do nothing? Well, you can't do nothing either, because your body can say, well, you have to do what I want you to do, not because
Right.
you don't do anything. You
Yeah.
can't say,
If
hey,
you
I'm
don't,
going to become a
if you
monk.
don't use it, you lose it. You know. Yeah.
I mean, think about it. I mean, your body needs to have like some kind of a change, right? For
Right.
it to be active, because that's why people hate to be isolated. People hate to be lonely, right? You
Yeah.
think
I
about
mean,
you think
yeah.
about the prisoners, right? You go into prison and you do something really, really bad. They put into isolation for whatever, 3 days, 5 days, a week, whatever, and usually it's just 3 days. And you go out there and you're a changed person. You cannot you cannot be isolated. The same thing when you look at all the the older generations, when they like in the retirement age, they want company. They are
That's
you
all
know
they
they
want.
That's all they want, exactly. When
Yeah.
you think about it, because we as a human person are made not to be in isolation. And
Yeah.
so
We're social.
so the body is going to tug on you until you give it because like if you have a headache, for example, you can't just say, hey, headache, to go away. You have to appease the headache to make it go
Right.
away, and then you be at peace. So your body is, like I say, the way that you are made is by some combinations of molecules and atoms that put together in a certain pattern makes you who you are. You are unique in history, in all of the human history. That means that even people that have existed and died before you don't even have the exact same copy of the gene that they do
Right.
among the million of years that we have existed so far. And so you are unique enough that because of that unique pattern, you need to have quote unquote a calling, whatever that calling is, whatever is missing, whatever that body is needing, your body is needing to fulfill its
Purpose.
ease, like
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, quote unquote purpose.
Yeah.
Because like I say, some of these words have been bastardized to death. That when we
I
use it,
know. Yeah.
it become. But I'm saying, so I'm trying to describe it in a way that I'm not using a particular word, but it's
Words matter
essentially,
though, right?
yeah, it was
You
matter.
gotta.
So people need to understand that you gotta choose a word that resonate with you.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you this is the word, right? I'm just saying this word could be for you or for another person or whatever. Because different word may resonate with you. So I'm saying whatever that word for you is, that's the quote unquote the word that you need to use to say, well, what do I need to do to make quote unquote a point of reference as my quote unquote calling, so I can fulfill that. Once you fulfill that
Right.
calling, then you're gonna be happy because you are at peace with yourself, or your body is at peace and you are at peace. And when you're at peace, essentially that is going to give you a sense of belonging, a sense of fulfillment, and that's where happiness comes from. Because happiness is essentially an emotion that your body creates.
Right.
And so it comes back to the chemistry again. So you can't really control that. So you're talking about the dopamine, the molecule of more, right? And the molecule of here and now, right? And so
Yeah.
so some people have too much of that. Well, they worry all the time because they say, well, I'm always predicting and trying to predict the future, but it doesn't come true. So you're mismatching a lot of these things.
Right.
So some people who know too much because they have too much dopamine. Let's say you have too much dopamine, but you learn a lot, you become more depressed. But if you have
Right.
less dopamine, but you learn a lot, well, yeah, it doesn't really matter because you don't really think too much in the future. You only think of the here and now. And so you go
Right.
back to what I was saying before. It's also the balance as well, because let's say I'm a person that is more dopamine, or you have a more dopamine person, right? Then you need to compensate that with something else. Like going to say, hey, I need to live
Yeah,
in the
it's
moment,
polarity, right? Yeah,
right? So you gotta balance it out because you're born with a polarity. Now you need the other side to kind of balance yourself out so that
right,
you can have that here now. Plus, having a more prudent, future just because you have dopamine
right.
too. So you have to feed the dopamine that you have because
Right.
it's there. You're gonna have to
It's
feed it.
so
If you
yeah, no, I'm with you, tracking 100%. I was gonna say for like Will Durant, right? Like, his comments when he's later on in his life was balanced out with the fact that he spent a lifetime of questioning and curiosity, but also I feel like at some point in time in his life, he clearly knew what his purpose was because that was what his meaningful work, the volumes and volumes of work that he did, right? So he also not only did he know that he didn't know anything, he also knew that he knew everything at the same time that was important to him, So it's like you said, it's the polarity of the finding the happy medium point of when you go one way to one end of the pole, like it'll boomerang you back at a certain time to the other end of the pole, whether it's good or bad, right? And I like to think of like if you do nothing but question and think I don't know anything, eventually you're going to figure out what's really really important to you. And then at the same time, if you always know
it's a
everything,
pendulum, right? It's a
it'll
pendulum.
swing back
It's
to the
going
other
back and
side,
forth
right?
like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
right? But at
So
the end of the
like
day, you want to stay in the middle somewhere, right?
right, and or have two really good anchors on both sides of like our core values. We try to keep this side and down to remember we don't know anything, even though our knowledge grows and we feel like we have more purpose and direction and we feel like we know exactly what we want to do. Over here, it's kind of balanced out by both, saying like, look, I may be wrong. Like it's okay. Like I mean, I'm open to shifting how I interpret this and how I apply this purpose in this world because I don't do anything on things the anchor, which then gives you balance in the middle, in a weird way, So I think my reflection was, could use another end of the spectrum of like the balance on the other side of fulfillment and purpose, because
Right.
Will Durant clearly had a purpose in life, otherwise he wouldn't have done what he did. And he
Right,
wouldn't
because thing
have,
is that his remarks that I'm smarter when I was younger, it belies another meaning. You know what I mean? The meaning that he actually know more now, right? So the thing is,
it's
it's a
both.
double
Yeah.
meaning. It's a double meaning when
Right, right.
you read his comment, right? It's a double meaning. Think
Yeah.
about it. When you think, well, how could he be smarter when he was younger, right? He is saying he's dumber when he was younger. So he's both right and he's telling you both. He's saying, hey, I was smarter when I was dumb. I was smarter when I was younger, but I was also much dumber when I was younger. And then vice
Right,
versa, he was much more dumber now because of he's smarter and was younger, but he also is more smarter now. So
right.
these are the meaning that is inside of that single quote.
Yeah, agreed. It's both ends of the spectrum,
Yeah.
at the same time. And I don't know when that kind of happens, in life. I mean, I know for me, obviously we talked about this in this whole journey was the atomic bomb that happened in my own life that sent me down the road of figuring it out. I don't know what Will Durant's was, or his wife's Ariel Durant's was. I'd be kind of curious to learn, to be honest with you. I mean,
Right.
like I just don't feel like beavers become beavers for no reason, what I mean? Like it happened, something happened, like for
I mean, the
beavers
thing is,
to
you're born a beaver,
to
right?
be beavering, right?
You are going to end up
No, I'm talking about the first
running.
beaver. I'm talking about the first beavers. Like there was some reason why those first beavers. There was some catalyst that made those first beavers feel like
Exactly.
they need to
Exactly.
dam something. I'm not. I mean, yes, I understand like the lineage of a beaver of a beaver being a beaver down the road, but like some first beavers didn't have that purpose. Like I don't know when
Yes,
that was
they
happened and
got
why it
thrown into the
happened.
river, and for
Right.
whatever reason, forced fire or
Or maybe there was
whatever,
a drought. Yeah, maybe there was a drought and
destroy
they were
their
like, shit.
family, and they had so much miserable and hardship, right? That
Right.
they were able to find the river, and they can't use the river. They got to figure out how to make the river into a little pond so they can nestle and be who they are, or however to cope with life, right? that throws them into that particular behavior. And that behavior is what they pass on from generations to generations. And they have to say, well, this is what my ancestors used to do. I must follow because they are the one that basically branch off and save my lineage from becoming extinct. And so that beaver, because of the branching off, had an atomic bomb for it to happen.
Do you think that evolution is slow, or do you think it's like a black swan event that catapults evolution to force its hand? Like and like a beaver becoming a beaver. Do you think it was like a slow little
really,
iteration over time, or do you think it was like one big event that was like, guys, we got to do this, like
for me,
what do you think?
For me, evolution only happens when you have a drastic change. There are multiple drastic change. So the lineage of all these trees that branches off, there was some kind of a big atomic bomb event that happened for it to branch off. Because if you don't, that lineage never changed. You think about it. If somebody would do the same thing over and over and over again, why would it change? There's no need for it to change, right? The change because the thing is that the way I think it works is like in the evolution, right? In the evolutionary tree, the people who are in the majority, right? So let's say you have like, let's say 10 beavers, well, like exactly the same thing. They're all digging dirt, right? And then you have one beaver that is able to swim, right? So that evolution.
Why did that one beaver learn how to swim?
So let's say because of whatever, and they learn how to swim. That
his family got flooded or whatever, and he had to fucking figure it out. Like, I mean, I guess to your point, that one beaver that learned how to swim wasn't just by accident. Like it wasn't just, oh, I'm gonna go check out this.
Exactly, but I think it has to be that event that he becomes a swimmer. That's one event. The other event is that he has to survive it, because the other 9 beaver is going to take over the lineage, because there's only one beaver that's off, right? That beaver who swim is going to die, because the majority is going to force him to die, because you don't belong. The thing is, the event that happens is that some event has to kill the other 9. Because a flood, for example, a flood comes, the other 9, because they're digging holes, they can't survive. The beaver that, for one event that made him into a swimmer, and second event is that the flood comes and made him able to survive and kills off the majority of the lineage for that lineage to become. So basically, that's a major atomic bomb event for that particular beaver lineage, for that beaver to split off. So for me, is evolution only happens when there's a major, right, event that is going to turn the path of history of these animals, or even for us, right? We have like ancestors, and we have like sister lineage, like Neanderthals, right? Neanderthal didn't survive, even though they are much more physical, bigger, stronger, faster, right? And they're even smarter than us in that. In the I guess the predictions, or whatever you call it, based on the evidence that they have so far, right? But the thing is, to say that they die off and we survive, it's a little bit different. Just because how can we survive and they die off? So the thing is, if there's no atomic bomb event, we would have both Neanderthals and humans.
Yeah,
no, think about it. I big event has to kill them off.
Right. I mean, I'm with you on that. Like I mean, I've said this all along. I feel like the evolution of your own life is determined by atomic bombs.
Yeah, because the thing is, I wouldn't change. Go back to my 19-year-old self, 18-year-old self. I wouldn't change unless something happens to me. That's why I'm changing.
It forces you. Like it forces your hand. Like
exactly.
It's I mean it's
because there's nothing I can say, or nothing anyone can say to make me change my mind. I had to change my own mind because of the circumstances that I was thrown into, because of the brick wall that I ran into. And so these are the kind of events that is major events that is going to change the path. No other ways can change the path. So you can't say, well, it's gonna go slowly by random chance. In no way, no way by random chance. Because even if by random chance you have a beaver that is gonna swim and the other nine are digging holes, right? The nine's gonna kill off the 1%. The majority is always gonna carry on the lineage. To think about it, right? You're an outcast. How can you
Right.
become the major player in your own lineage? How can that be when the other nine are exactly going to be like this is the majority and it's going to become gone? How can it become gone? The only way, the only way that so the only option is you have like multiple varieties of okay, there are digging hole beavers and there are swimming beavers. That would be
Right.
the options, and then the option where you have the digging hole beavers, right? Because the majority, the other one's gonna die off. So those are two most likely scenario that if nothing happens, so the most I would say like 90% of the time you would have both the digging hole beavers and the swimming beaver because by random chance you're gonna have more variety, right?
Right.
But the thing is you don't
Right.
see
Yeah.
like digging hole beavers and you don't see swimming beavers. You don't see people with 3 ears and 5 eyes, right? How,
Right.
how many people do you see that? You don't see that just because it
Right.
doesn't. Because it only happens when there is a major event that makes one species survive and another species die off.
Right.
Because otherwise, you would have somebody with 5 arms, 6 arms, 7 arms, whatever you want, right?
Right.
Because the thing
Yeah.
is, today we do have people with like 6 toes or whatever, but that's rare. It's red. It
I
doesn't it
mean,
doesn't carry
or it could
on.
be an octopus. Not an octopus has eight tentacles, or
Right.
whatever it
Right. But the thing is, the specific
is.
species
I
has to
mean, not be
be
a
has
human, but
yeah, there has to be a major atomic bomb event for the path to veer off.
yeah, not just for the path to veer off, but for purpose to be found. I mean,
Exactly. Right. Because the thing is
I mean,
that
yeah,
go back to evolution of how people are being put together by the patterns of DNA that determines your purpose. So to go back to what you said before is you live in your core values and I'm living my core values. Why do I have my core values and why do you have your core values and why is it different?
because the atomic bombs of life were different than your atomic bombs, and they set me into a different course of alignment of what I wanted to do to find meaning and purpose and fulfillment. I mean, like
So
it's
let me ask you this: like, if you are told to leave your core value, but I want you to do that in code, in programming language, and just sit there 16 hours a day and just type on the keyboard, how would you feel? That you don't talk to anyone.
what am I what wait what am I am I creating something?
You're just creating a program, computer program.
Yeah, but am I is does it result in some sort of a an actual creation
Yeah, just
that
like we're talking
others
about
can
the
leverage and
packing
use?
app, right? The packing app, right?
Sure, I could do that if it meant I got to live my core values through actions that then created meaningful work that others could that others could consume or
But
just view, leverage, then yeah, I'd be okay with that.
but the thing is, why are you doing that though?
Well, I'm doing it to because I must. Like, I
No,
mean,
you do that because your body tells you
like, yeah.
your body tells you you want to because it makes your body
No, no, it's
feel
I said I must. I
you
don't.
must
Yeah,
exactly that's
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 what
what
I'm
I'm saying
saying.
is
Yeah, yeah,
your body say hey I gotta do something, right? I feel this way, right?
right,
I feel like I need to have an
right.
app that Russian people who are packing whatever the what we talking about the other day, talking about the app that we want to build to track people
Let's not get into that. Let's not even get into that
but
one.
the point I'm trying to say is that the reason why you are so adamant and so excited about the app is because your body is generating these emotions,
Right.
right? The emotions of whatever you're feeling, you want that feeling.
Yeah.
Because you want that feeling, you want to do that to satisfy that feeling. And so that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, in order for you to be happy, you have to satisfy the feeling your body generates. And if
Correct.
it generates that, and because different people is different things will generate different feelings for different people. So some people like the pack and ass, some people don't. And that's
Right.
exactly what I'm talking about is if you fulfill your feeling, your body's feeling and your body's, reactions to the stimuli, then you're gonna be feel euphoria. You're gonna say, "Hey, this is great. This is happy. This is exciting. I'm so
Yeah.
glad I get to do this." And so at the end of
Right.
the day, happiness comes from adhering to the thing you made for. A cheetah is gonna love running fast, right?
Right.
A sloth is not gonna love running fast. A
Right.
fish gonna love to swim, right? An Arctic, like an Arctic fox or
Uh,
a
hang on, hang on. Everything you're saying, I believe. But what if a fish gets thrown out of water, right? Like I don't know how it happens, but he gets thrown out of water, and then he figures out how to survive. He gets put into a world where he's like, I don't know anything. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew how to swim. I thought I knew how to get food. I thought I knew all this stuff, and now I don't know shit, right? Like, and that's what the atomic bomb does to somebody is they go, I thought I knew it all, and now I know nothing. Like, and I still know nothing, but I have to find a way forward to find something that I can get purpose and fulfillment out of, right? So that everything you're saying I agree with, except for what happens if all of that changes overnight, and
right
like and
because
that's
in
and
it
that's and
in
that's
it
when the questioning,
I'm
that's when I
telling
thought
you
I knew
that
something when I was younger comes into play. You know what I
exactly.
mean?
So what I'm
Yeah.
saying is when your atomic bomb happens, how did you feel?
Awful. I felt I didn't
Exactly.
understand
That's
anything. I felt
exactly
like
you you
I,
you don't
I
want that feeling,
it's
but
the
the
worst the
atomic
worst thing I've ever
bomb
felt in my life. Yeah. But
forces
but it
you.
also,
It
yeah.
forces you to change. It forces you to
Well,
change.
it doesn't force you to change. It gives you the opportunity to change. You either do nothing and die, or you keep moving and you find a new purpose and
Right. It
alignment
forces you to
around
change. If you don't
how
change, you
how to.
die.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
You fish thrown out of water. You have to change. The only other
Or
option is to
you're dying.
die. Right. It forces you to change. Right. You either change. You don't change. You die.
Right.
That by definition, the word force means you have to. Right. You have to change.
Yeah.
If you don't, by definition, by default, you don't exist. And so
Right.
that's
But
the thing is the atomic bomb is the most miserable thing that you wouldn't even wish it on your worst enemies.
right.
It
I
is
wouldn't. I
is
would not
is
want a fish that would spend his life in water to get thrown out of the water and
yeah,
figure out how
but
to survive.
sometimes atomic
Like,
bomb does that, and it has to endure through the hardship, through the miserable of life, and to change into something that's different. And once he able to adapt to the changes, then his values, his core value changes, his
but you
purpose
never,
changes.
but you never forget the bomb either, and forget the feeling that you didn't know anything and you still don't know anything,
Yeah,
and that
so
could happen again
like
tomorrow. Like,
if a fish jump out of water and learns how to live on land, he still has an affinity for water.
yeah, but now, but what if he ends up having to learn how to fly? Like, I mean, like my point is like once you know that can happen, like that always keeps that humility, that
Right,
I don't
but
know anything thought process in
exactly.
your head. Yes, you may find a path forward in this new life, but also you also know that you don't know anything. You know what I mean? It's this weird, it's
That's
this
all.
weird balance,
That's
polarity.
always.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
always true. It's always true.
right.
You don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. We don't know nothing, and that's always will be true.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
have never
100%.
seen anyone has ever proven anything. We have always been able to disprove something, and you can even disprove something that is quote accepted to be true, like accepted to be true because hey, based on the evidence, it is most probable that it's true, but it's not 100% true. But at the same
Right,
time, later on, like Einstein, he break one of Newton's law because Newton's law had been accepted as a law, and
right.
so the thing is, it can be disproven. And so the notion that we don't know anything is always will be true in the past
Right.
and in the future. There's no way you're gonna know because you're talking about fish throwing on the water, learn how to swim. Well, it's something new,
But you
and then you
but
gotta
you
figure
can't
out how
live
to.
you can't but you can't live life always not knowing anything either. You know what I mean? Like that's where the tricky part comes in, is like you have to find that purpose in whatever life that you're given. Um whether you chose it or not, most of the time you don't, but I mean, like, you still have to find that purpose, and know that purpose 100% and believe that purpose 100% until, for whatever reason, that's taken away from you. That you can't control that, and always be humble and know, but like, somebody could take away my purpose from me today. I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know where, I don't know when, but I know that it can't happen. Like, and that doesn't mean that I can't still have purpose again after that. I just know that, like, it can't happen. Because,
Right,
like,
but I
it's
mean, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, exactly. I mean, I agree with you what you said, but come back to what I'm trying to paint a picture. It's like you are a beaver in a river, and you are building a dam, and suddenly the river's still there, the weather's still nice. You're looking for an ice lake. Why would you look for an ice lake? There's no need for you to look for an ice lake, but only
you don't. I
until
mean, you're not looking
you
for it
don't.
unless you get thrown into
You
it.
don't look until the weather freezes, right? The weather changes and freezes,
Right,
and all of the river turn to ice. And then okay, I have an eye, I
right,
have no more river. Then this is where you change yourself, right? So you have to adapt. But
right,
at the end of the day, we have the ability to adapt, and that's one of the superpower that humans have is we are able to adapt to anything. And adapting meaning you have to learn, and learning is part of our DNA, part of the items and the patterns that made us who we are. So we are inheriting that part. And the second thing is, in order for us to feel like we are living a good life, quote unquote, we have to do the things that we think that we're made to do, whatever that calling is, to fulfill that. And so it's not to say, hey, I do everything that my calling does. It's like, okay, how do I maximize it? That's something that I don't know, and I'm gonna try to
right,
experiment. And I'm gonna touch a stove, and it's gonna be hot, and I'm gonna yank my hand out, and I'm not gonna put my hand back into the stove
right,
again. Right? That's learning. I'm not saying that I won't ever touch a stove and I will have 100% happiness. That's not gonna work, and that's not gonna be realistic. It's just that you can have to maximize. Say, do I want like 2% of the things I do is fulfilling who I'm supposed to be, or like 80% or 90%, right? The other 10% you're gonna have to be exploratory, and you have to figure out how to
right.
adjust and adapt to the changing conditions.
Agreed. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let's call this one, if you don't mind. I know you're on vacation, and it's getting late. But fun conversation as always. Any final closing thoughts, or you feel like you've purged?
I think I purged it.
Okay, awesome. All right. So the question for when following along here today, for you guys, is, in what ways do you get dumber the older you get? What did you think you really understood earlier in your life that you realize now that you didn't know anything, and at the same time, vice versa? How do you keep that same mindset, today, now that you kind of have a different perspective on life a little bit, potentially. So let us know in the comments. And we appreciate you all for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one.
Yep. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
All right, have a good night.